In the Middle Ages, vegetables formed the main part of the diet, especially for the peasants who made up the majority of the population across Western Europe. There are several kinds of veggies that were often used in medieval cookery, as well as for medicinal purposes, that have since become overlooked and lost over the centuries. So let's travel back to the Middle Ages to find out about some of these forgotten vegetables, from delicate yet flavoursome greens to the more robust root veggies, all of which would be hard to find on our modern supermarket shelves. So I'd like to dedicate this video to all of the vegans out there. Welcome to Medieval Madness. Skirret, sweet parsnip. This root vegetable, whose name means white root, is known as crummock in Scotland and sugar root on mainland Europe. Its white, sweet roots are similar to the parsnip and could be roasted in the same way. In his article Vegetables in the Middle Ages, John Harvey states that skirrets should be, quote, cleaned, parboiled, fried in the best oil or in butter, and eaten hot. In her work Physica, the 12th century German legend Hildegard von Bingen, an all-round egghead as she was among other things, a philosopher, composer, polymath, medical writer, and mystic, talked about the medical properties of skirret and warned against eating too much. She wrote, quote, "Skirret is hot and dry. Eaten in moderation, it is not very helpful or harmful. If someone should eat a lot of it, its heat and dryness would stir up fevers in him and harm his intestines. A person whose face has weak skin which easily splits should pound skirret in a mortar and add oil. When he goes to bed at night, he should rub it on his face, continuing until he is healed." In A Modern Herbal, Maud Grieve says that skirret could also be used for chest complaints. It turns out that skirrets are actually pretty popular. In her book A History of Gardening in England, Mrs. Evelyn Cecil writes that the skirret was ranked among favourite vegetables, everywhere sown or planted in gardens, very pleasant to be eaten, and does nourish well. And in his Herbal or General History of Plants written in 1633, John Gerard declares that, quote, "The roots be moderately hot and moist, they nourish meanly and yield a reasonably good juice. But they are something windy, by reason whereof they also provoke lust. They be eaten boiled with vinegar, salt, and a little oil, after the manner of a salad, and oftentimes they be fried in oil and butter, and also dressed after other fashions." So after eating, make sure you're prepared for just a little bit of loving and a whole lot of tooting. Alexander's ancient celery. What makes the Alexander great is the fact that every single part of the plant can be eaten, flower, stem, and root, and so it was a popular medieval vegetable and regularly served. Growing to a height of 3 to 4 feet, they have very large leaves, a tuberous root, and yellow flowers, and can be found across Europe, especially in coastal areas. Alexanders have a unique flavour, sort of like a combination between celery, parsley, and myrrh. Alexanders were important to the medievals because the plants can be eaten in February and March, a time of the year when other fresh vegetables would have been scarce. Used by apothecaries, Alexanders could help stomach complaints and stimulate the appetite. Also known as black lovage in Thomas Tusser's 1557 book of Good Husbandry, Alexanders are recommended in the listing of herbs and roots for salads and sauce. A later recipe for Alexander pottage is included in Robert May's book The Accomplished Cook, when it is boiled with oatmeal and enhanced with butter and salt. Cardoon, artichoke thistle. Looking like a giant thistle plant with silvery leaves, cardoon can grow up to 6 feet tall. They were being cultivated in medieval kitchen gardens by the 8th century. Both the stalks and the flower heads are edible. Similar to the artichoke in taste, their spiny stalks meant the plant was often wrapped in burlap before harvesting. Cardoon would then be blanched, braised, or fried and served with a sauce or added to pottage. In the 16th century south of France, the cardoon was seen as a great delicacy and was served at the finest tables. Although A History of Gardening in England mentions the cardoon as being popular on the continent of Europe, not so much in England because, quote, "We cannot yet find the true manner of dressing them, that our country may take delight therein." Medieval spinach, Good King Henry. This vegetable has been grown in cottage gardens for hundreds of years. Sadly, it is now usually considered a weed. It can grow up to 2 feet tall and has shield-shaped juicy leaves. Peasants planted Good King Henry at the back door for easy harvesting. The leaves can be treated just like spinach and perhaps put into a tart flavoured with cinnamon, rosewater and sugar, or a herb tart with sorrel, parsley and eggs. Being from the spinach family, Good King Henry could be eaten raw, boiled and served with butter and salt, or thrown by the handful into the pottage pot that permanently hung over the fire. New stalks from the plant can be treated like asparagus, which according to the accomplished cook could be, quote, boiled with some almond paste. Good King Henry was also used as a curative to cleanse wounds and infections when added to ointments and poultices. The root was even given to sheep as a cough remedy. It has many other names such as poor man's asparagus and fat hen because it is used to fatten poultry, but is known as Good King Henry after being named for the benevolent German king, as it returns faithfully every year and does not have to be replanted like other greens. Angelica, the root of the Holy Ghost. Legend has it that Angelica received its name because it first bloomed on the feast day of the Archangel Michael, so it was seen as protective against witchcraft and evil spirits and was carried as a talisman. The tall plant, which can grow as high as 8 feet, has sweetly scented edible stems and roots, and needs to be identified with certainty as there are several poisonous species. The tiny flowers group together and form large umbrella-shaped clusters. From the 10th century, Angelica was used as both a medicinal plant and a vegetable. According to the modern herbal, every part of Angelica could be used, quote, the stalks and roots candied are good in times of infection and comfort a cold stomach. The juice being dropped into the eyes or ears helps dimness of sight and deafness. Angelica was also said to have been revealed as a cure for the plague by a dreaming monk. It was added to pottage for flavour or made into preserves, and medieval brewers would add it to wine and liqueurs. Bistort, passion pudding plant. The leaves and young shoots of the Bistort plant can be boiled or steamed and eaten as a vegetable. Even the roots were cooked and eaten in times of hardship, although they needed much more boiling. The Bistort was an ingredient of traditional Easter ledge pudding, a savoury dish made with oats, barley, eggs and onions that was eaten to celebrate the end of winter and Lent. Because Bistort thrives in wet areas, medieval peasants were able to plant it in damp meadows where other crops would fail to grow as well. The plant grows up to about 31 inches tall and has attractive pink flower spikes. The Bistort has twisted roots shaped like the letter S, which is how the plant got its name. It is also known as snake root. Because of the high amount of tannin that Bistort leaves and roots contain, they are often used to make an astringent mixture to treat wounds. It was also used to treat cases of dysentery, so the perfect plant for medieval soldiers to use on campaign. Lovage, the flavour enhancer. Grown in medieval cottage gardens, this tall plant has very large sweet leaves that were used to give an aniseed flavour to boring winter dishes. Although when foraging in the wild, medievals had to be careful as they looked incredibly similar to the leaves of the poisonous hemlock plant, which when ingested can prove fatal. According to the modern herbal, the roots were, quote, excellent in a salad, but when boiled and eaten with oil and vinegar, very good for old people that are dull and without courage. It rejoiceth and comforteth the heart, and increaseth their lust and strength. As a medicinal, lovage was a cure-all and was good for everything from coughs to flatulence. The antiseptic roots could be used as a decoction for the bites of vipers and apparently even mad dogs. In the Capitulare de Villis, a 9th century text about the maintenance of royal estates, it is recommended that lovage should be cultivated. The estates belonged to Charlemagne, who was emperor of the Carolingian Empire from the year 800. St. Hildegard recommends lovage for the treatment of coughs, heart problems, and, quote, to cure a horse who has pain in his belly. There is a recipe about how to make buttered pot herbs in a little manuscript of medieval recipes and remedies that was found in the library of the 17th century diarist Samuel Pepys. The book is titled Stir it Well and recommends taking, quote, all manner of good herbs such as lovage, parsley and chervil. Pick, wash, chop, boil, and put thereto butter, a great quantity, salt them, but do not allow any oatmeal to come therein, and dice bread in small pieces, put it in dishes, pour on the herbs, and serve forth. Medlar, Arse custard. These small apple-like fruits come from the medlar tree. Strangely, this russet-coloured fruit with a little crown on top cannot be eaten until it is slightly rotted. Known as bletting, this is a process that some fleshy fruits undergo beyond ripening, so it has to be rotten before it is ripe. For this reason, the medievals didn't harvest them until quite late in the year, October or November, after the first frost had touched them and helped with the ripening process. Once ready, medlars were used to make preserves that could then be eaten in the winter. Skinned, boiled, and mixed with sugar, they were turned into a rich fruit custard. Hildegard von Bingen recommended that, quote, "A person who suffers from ague should pulverize its roots and drink this powder in warm water. The fruit of the tree is good and useful for healthy and sick people. It increases their flesh and cleanses their blood." In Nicholas Culpeper's Complete Herbal and English Physician, medlars are said to be useful for everything from a mouthwash to hemorrhoids, quote, "when they bleed too much." The English poet Geoffrey Chaucer mentions the medlar in his famous Canterbury Tales written in the late 14th century. He refers to the medlar using Middle English, a language that was spoken in English after the Norman conquest, and calls the fruit open arse. Garden vegetables that could be made into soup or pottages formed an essential part of the medieval diet for all classes, from peasant to monarch. Not only were they grown in modest cottage gardens, but also in the wart gardens of the large manor houses and palaces. Wart refers to colewort, now known as leaf cabbage or kale, which was a staple food for the medievals. Instead of sticking to our unexciting standard produce, perhaps we should look to bringing back some of these sustainable and more nutritionally diverse medieval vegetables to revolutionize our diet, as we all should be looking to eat more plant-based foods. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Please do subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really does help us out, and leave a comment down below as to which of these vegetables you reckon would be worth trying. Cheers everyone, I'll see you in the next video.